you will have people asking you and wanting to give you more and more responsibility, give you more money. I got multiple pay raises without asking for them because they're like, well, you should be making this
Mm.
now. Well, now we want to give you this because they realized I was having an impact. So instead of sitting there and begging for pay raises, they were giving them to me.
This is the Living Numbers podcast, where everyone is interesting if you ask the right questions. Thank you for tuning in wherever and whenever that may be. Before we start, of course, I have 4 appeals, 20 seconds, time me, ready, set, go. Number 1, share, rate, review, 5 stars. Number 2, subscribe on Apple and Spotify for all the behind the scenes stuff. Me and Aaron just had a great conversation that could have went on probably for another 20 minutes. But you got to subscribe to get that. Follow on IG and TikTok at the Living Numbers Podcast. And last but not least, cop hoodies, t-shirts, merch link in the description and time. I know I went over 20 seconds, but that's okay. Okay, whenever we have somebody on for the first time, they have to get an elaborate intro. So here we go. Hailing from Orem, Utah, maybe. I know Utah, but Mr. Shelley will correct me in the end. Here we go. He earned his mechanical engineering bachelor's and MBA from Brigham Young University, also known as BYU, go Cougs. He's had various jobs, including COO, product developer, product manager, owner, author, sales support for various companies, which we will talk about. This man does everything. He's said to be an excellent manager and mentor that trains and allows people to do their best work. He's got the reviews, the 5-star reviews. Family leader, master strategist, and lightning talker. I present the Aaron Shelley. Say hello to the people.
Hey, thanks a lot, Tony. It's a great introduction. Best I've had so far.
Well, when you reached out to me and you're like, hey, I want to come on the show, you like the relationships and the people part, which, I think that's the part that we love the most with what we do. I was like, okay, let me dig into this guy. And I just saw all the different stuff. I'm like, okay, yeah. And then you learn stuff when you have these pre-show conversations. So we were talking about hooping. You speak Russian. I'm like, this stuff that I didn't even know that we have to fit in here. So, all right, we're going to jump into our first number. Okay, so a little bit of background on you, and then I'll let you take it. So, Mr. Shelley here created a system that lowered errors by 99%. Okay, I wish I had that for my softball team right now because sometimes, those errors just pile up. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, were you really into tech as a kid? Because I know that's your jam. So where did this kind of tech start happening in your brain where you're like, okay, I think this is me?
Well, I'd say when I was young, really young, I was just super competitive. I played baseball, soccer, basketball. I threw javelin in high school. And so I think there's that side of I really wanted to win. And then you get into technology. I mean, I was early Nintendo, video games. And so it's like, how do I win there? And then you start to get into computer programming and, hey, how could I hack this game?
Mm.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying, is what some people say. So you'd look at it from this perspective. My dad was a computer programmer, also got his PhD. So he had kind of helped me and taught me and gave me some access to things in programming. And so it was kind of just this natural, I like to learn and figure out how things work. And so, sports, I love that. You have the numbers in sports, all the statistics, and you kind of break it down. You see that in Moneyball and these other things like, oh, if you understand the numbers, then you know what to do. So I think it was that broad, competitive, but I also like achieving things and I love learning. And that kind of just led me into tech.
So were you the kid like taking stuff apart and putting it back together?
Yeah. when I wasn't playing sports, yes. It was like I would seriously come home from school, go out in the street. We had about 10 or 15 kids. We'd just play football on the asphalt. We'd play baseball in our cul-de-sac, sometimes hit
Mm,
cars and windows and things. It was just sports. And then when there weren't people, then we'd either play video games or we'd take stuff apart. My parents would always give me stuff that was broken and, hey, can you figure this out or fix it? So yeah, I mean, I was kind of this weird athletic nerd type weird mix, I suppose.
man, like you literally just described my childhood. It was all sports. It was me and my cousins. We're out playing football. And then whenever my uncles wanted to go to the court and shoot hoops, we would go with them. And, this was for me, it was early 2000s. So it was like the Detroit Pistons, the Bad Boys Part 2 came around. So I had this big afro like Ben Wallace. And I'm always was like an athletic kid. So I'm like flying around. But what was your favorite sport growing up?
Oh, I think my favorite sport to play was probably football. It's just
Mm,
there's such beautiful power there, and then you have the coaches playing chess at the same time. You see that with the Super Bowl where you just see the play calling and you're like, how is that guy that wide open? Oh, because they were setting that up.
yep.
So there's this really strategic element of chess which I don't know that people really understand. And then there's the really physical part of football,
Mm,
sorry, where they don't understand. You see that and it's just like it's a beautiful mix of talent and skill, but also the strategy. So that's why I love football. But it's hard to say. They're all so fun when you get a good team together.
yeah. Yeah, and you get the right people. It's always funny to
Mhm.
see the football players play a game like basketball that's a lot more finesse. And they just go through like trucking everybody. And that was my brother Troy, shout out. And he had no like finesse to his game. So he was hyper physical. He played running back and outside linebacker. So this guy, Troy was
He
just
hits
a
you.
hackathon, man. Man, this guy, I love my brother Troy, but this guy, he's gotten better over the years. He was the worst though. Like it sucked playing against him. Um,
Uh-huh.
wow. So did you ever think about coaching?
Um, I think a little. I kind of when I was playing football in high school, there was a point when I was blocking someone, got my arm up, and the running back hit my arm from the back, and I kind of got jacked up, and I was like, "What am I doing? I had really good grades. I had a scholarship for um, school for college. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm not going to make. I mean, I'm 6'4". Right now, I'm 6'4", and I'm 235 pounds. So every time I see the people, they're like, "Oh, it's a
Mm,
big guy," and I'm like, "That's me. I could have played, but." Man, it's a different mentality. The guys who I know, I mean, my team ended up
mm.
take state championship when I wasn't playing on it. So I'm like, those guys, they
Wow.
play at a level of physicality and emotionality that I just didn't have. I kind of was like, at that point, I need to move on to my engineering, my mental stuff. I don't think I'm going to make it in the NFL, which is where I kind of directed my efforts away from.
Quick story here. So you say you're 6'4", about 235.
Yep.
So when I lived in China for a year, there's always this stigma, right? So for you, it's like, oh, that's the big guy. Like he's gonna destroy everybody, right? He's gonna pound the glass. He's gonna put elbows on people. And
Uh-huh.
so for me, being the black, strong looking guy, athletic build, I'm only like 5'8", 160, but I can jump and stuff. So when I was in China, I would see people that I'm like, okay, easy game. I get on the court, people are playing like it's the game of their life because it's the American guy that's black. I just got everybody's best shot. I felt like the Warriors when I stepped on the court because everybody's playing really hard. They're playing the Troy defense, where it's just like
Uh-huh.
borderline dirty. It's like, come on, what? You didn't play that guy like this? Come on, what is this? So
Uh-huh.
yeah, there's always like these stigmas that we have to battle against. And so like kind of using that, how did you take what you learned from sports, right? Here we go, into the workplace and how you handle people and manage these different people? Because we talked about it a little bit beforehand.
Yeah, if you look at people, I mean, sports teams I actually love because they're a great analogy for how a business should work, right? You have one, if you look at football, you have one quarterback. That's all you need. And that guy, everyone needs to play around him, everyone needs to support him. And it's not that he's better and he's more valuable. It's just he has the most responsibility on the field. And then you've got the
Mm,
running backs and the wide receivers. I mean, those guys, they take some gnarly hits. You know, they're coming at each other really hard. And so you got to appreciate them, right? And then you actually, if you take it on the flip side, you got the defense, you've got the defensive line, you got the running backs, you got the safety. Like everyone has a position. And if you sit there and diminish another person because,
mm,
well, you're lesser, you're different, you're this, what the heck? You need those people. You need the fast, safeties and DBs
yes.
and wide receivers and running backs, but then you also need the burly fullbacks and O line and defensive line. You know, it's so funny when you see sometimes you'll see these massive offensive linemen, and then you'll see this tiny little running back that can literally hide behind him. And you're like, this is the
Yeah.
beauty of football. There's so much diversity of skills that people bring to the table. And it's not like, well, you just can't play because you don't fit. It's like, where do you fit? And I think that's the same in business of
Yes.
what do you bring into the table? And I think there's a point where you also look at football or sports as an analogy of you got to bring your side. You got to, if you're a blocker, your O line and you don't block, your quarterback or your running back's going to get destroyed, right? So
Yep.
if you don't play your position well and give in your heart, give it all, then you don't deserve to be on the field because we're all in this together. So to me, it's like there's a
Mm,
whole side of we got to be putting in our best efforts. We got to be contributing in the business world all 100%. We can't do this. Well, I saw this guy, he wasn't contributing. Okay, well, if everyone on the team plays crappy, then we're going to have a losing season. Why do we even play? Just so we can
mm.
get beat up? So I love the analogy. I mean, there's the business world is a team sport and it's so much fun to play
Mm.
together. And when you have success, you can celebrate the sales team that loves to talk to people, and then you can celebrate the product team who's building the product, right? Different skill
Yep.
sets but equally valuable in a company. So I think that's a core part of sports is we're all on the same team. We don't want to backbite, go after people. Our quarterback sucks. You're saying, how can I support you? How do I help you win? Because I win with you.
Yes, absolutely. I thought about when you talked about the best managers or leaders are the people who put people in their position to use their skill set the best. And the first person I thought of was Andy Reid, because no matter who you put on his team, he just figures out the best way to maximize their potential. And you see another guy, Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers. Again,
Hmm.
you give him whomever, and he will figure out the best position to put them in, not just to make them successful, but to make the team successful. Because if everybody's working at their optimal point, then we're all going to win, right? We're going to be successful, right? Because we're in our best positions. Uh, do
Well,
you
well, and
have a
one other
guy?
one other thought.
Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
one other thought is if you look at great teams, like you look at the Chiefs, they have Andy, and then they've got Patrick Mahomes. The guy is a
Yep.
phenomenal star. I love watching highlights of all this. He's throwing with the wrong hand for freak's sake. What is he doing? Like it's just weird. But you see him and how he talks about, even though he's the one getting all the attention and everyone's saying how phenomenal he is, he's a great leader because he's able to
Yep.
push that out to other people. And even though he's getting all the attention, he's saying, "Yeah, and we had Kelsey, and we had this guy, and we had this guy," and he thanks my O
Yep.
line for keeping me up. Like that is the sign of a great leader. Yes, you deserve a lot of the attention because it is a heavy weight on you. But if you don't give that to
Mhm.
the supporting team and make sure that they're getting mentioned, those guys will stop working with you, stop putting in their effort. And that's why I think it's been amazing with
Yep.
these something like Patrick. He's just phenomenal at giving it out to the team. He also gets so many people involved. It's hard for a defense to cover him because he's throwing all over the field. It's not obvious where he's going. So he's using the best talents and he's using it's this whole everyone on the team doing what they can to get everyone involved. And then you just have this unstoppable force. I mean, I went into this last Super Bowl thinking Chiefs were going to lose. Freaking Eagles looked
Oh
unstoppable. And
no.
then you look at it going, what happened? How did they pull this off? And it was Mahomes was able to play through a lot of pain, which you got
Yep.
to respect. So that's another thing of the leader where Patrick doing that, what excuse does anyone else on the team have for not giving 100%? They know he's in pain. They know like, he's working through it. And if they're like, well, I feel a little tired, I feel this, you got no excuse if the leader's pushing harder than you are. So I think it's a phenomenal example of both leadership and team play.
Mm. And when your best player is your best leader, now we start to see some real, like, not just like we're adequate. We start to see some real success happen where you're setting benchmarks and you're leading your field, because you look at a guy like, here we go, like Tim Duncan, right? Best player, was the best leader. He was coachable. He didn't put himself above the team, right? He could have. He came in the league as an MVP candidate. But guess what? What did he say? No one person is bigger than the team. It's about us. It's
Yeah.
about all of our success. Another guy, Steph Curry. If anybody chose to be able to just shoot the ball whenever they felt like it with no consideration to anyone else, it's him. But what does he always talk about? It's about us. It's about the Warriors. It's about the team. He moves that ball and then he puts the action behind it. And now we're getting off into like the basketball weeds, but he does everything without the ball that makes everybody else successful, right? That's the coming in the gym early. That's being that boss that's going to not just assign stuff, but if you need to, get in there with those people that you're assigning stuff with and help them figure it out until they can fly on their own. So, speaking of flying on your own, you you had a bunch of different jobs at different companies, and so I know the thought used to be like kind of get with a company, stay there, grow, climb the ladder, so on and so forth. But you moved around a lot and you had a lot of things going simultaneously. So, how do you think that helped you as a professional?
Yeah. Well, so from my, when I the reason I got my MBA was not because I wanted to make more money or I got a weird degree that didn't make a lot of money, which is what, you'll often see people who get an English degree or some other degree that doesn't pay a lot, then they'll go back and get an MBA. For me, I got an engineering degree. And while I was in the engineering program, I was working as a junior engineer at a company and I was working on some R&D projects and those projects weren't getting any attention from the business.
Mm,
And I'm like, "Wait a minute, I'm working my butt off. I'm building really cool stuff. Why is the business not care about them?" So
mm,
so for me, it's less about like, "Oh, I want more money." It was like, "What's going on?" Because I'm realizing I could be the best engineer in the world, but if the business stuff doesn't support me, I get nothing, right? The business goes out even if
right.
you have great engineering. So at that point, I was like, I want to learn more about the business world. So that's where I went I actually did a dual major, never finished my thesis on my master's, but did all the coursework for my master's in engineering. And then I did my MBA and I was just loving it because it was all of the things that I had been
Mm,
exposed to in this engineering company, communication problems when I had classes on that, or strategy, human resources, finance, all these things came into perspective. And I love to understand how the whole system works because then I go, oh, now I see why my thing wasn't getting attention. It's because they were making so much money over here. They didn't really care. This
right.
wasn't their focus. So then I was like, oh, I get it. It wasn't that they were bad people or I was the victim. It was I didn't understand the decisions. And therefore I could, going and learning more, I was like, okay, I can appreciate what they're doing, but it still frustrated me. And then if we go to the jobs,
Right.
well, so when I left my MBA program, I'd read the books Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but it's one of my favorite
Hmm.
books. It talks about how money works, right? So you buy assets, those bring in income, then you get cash flow, you buy more assets, you have more income, more cash flow, right? This is a flywheel of finance that I like to talk about. Um,
Hmm.
so if you look at it in that sense, I was like, I want assets. And so my wife and I, when I finished my MBA, I had a job opportunity up at Portland, Oregon to go work with Intel. Like most people kind of climb the ladder. All my friends did that, and I was like, I don't really want to do that. So we bought a house with a
Right.
studio behind it where my wife could teach Irish dance. And she had taught for a while. And so we built up this studio which made it tricky for me because now instead of going and getting a job and then moving, I moved and then looked for a job. So it was about 18
Mm,
months of working on the business, not having a job, which was a pretty serious struggle actually. But it ended up being, since I was always doing this Irish dance, I've been doing it for now 20 years with my wife. She teaches. I don't do any of the dance, but I do all the technical stuff, the website, advertising, all that. So we're very complementary. But because I'm doing that at a
Yeah.
small scale, every business I've gone into, I'm like, I get the whole big picture. And then I'm more interested in how do I make an impact here versus how do I climb the ladder and build a fiefdom under me and just keep climbing. It's like I have an impact.
Mm.
Like when I was at ancestry.com, like you said, built this system. We took we had 23 people when I started. We ended up being, in 18 months we could do the same amount of work, actually better quality, better throughput, better everything with 3 people. Right? So it was from
Wow.
23 to 3, and it was, I just wanted to have impact. And then there really wasn't much for me to do there, so then I left that company, went to a startup because I wanted to have this opportunity to have equity, right? I don't want to just have income, I want to have assets.
Mm.
Because like
Mm.
I ended up getting laid off at a couple at Ancestry, and then they were like, I looked at it and I'm like, well, I can't ever get fired from my wife's business. This is way better. So it worked out really well. And then I had multiple businesses where I was looking, I want equity. I don't just want to go get a job. And so that's why I bounced
Right.
around. And ultimately, I ended up, I mean, the book actually came out of my opportunity to bounce around, where my mom said, hey, there's this guy at BYU. He's in the business department. He's writing a book. And so I was like, okay, I did some research with him on family and business. And then he said, and then I
Mhm.
was like, oh, my model's better, I think, than yours. Why don't you use it in your book? And he said, nope, that's your book. So I wasn't like
Yeah.
intending to write a book. I just came up with the model and was
Right.
like, this is useful for me. And then for about the past 4 years, I was an executive at a tech company. We ended up raising about $54 million from private equity, which gave me the opportunity to
Mm.
step back. And so that's kind of, now I can focus on the book. But I actually think the changing of jobs in our culture of learning and being able to bring different things to the table was actually a big asset for this last job I had, because I knew everything. I'd been a developer. I've built
Right.
apps for the App Store. I'd been in marketing. I'd been in sales, done all these things. So for me, and I like the big picture stuff. It was actually great for me to have so much diverse experience. I wouldn't recommend it if you have a very specific niche you want to do, but for me it was perfect.
When did you decide to, I guess, what are the questions that you asked yourself when you were trying to figure out when it was time to move or not? I know sometimes you talked about getting laid off and then you bought the home, so you had to move. But outside of that, when you get to a point where you feel like, okay, have I done everything that I need to do here? What are the questions that you ask yourself? Because plenty of people, especially with what has happened over the past couple of years, are like, okay, do I need to make a switch or do I ride this thing out? What did you ask yourself? How'd you come to those decisions?
My biggest question was, can I have an impact here? And how can I have an impact? At Ancestry, like I say, when I went from 3 people or 23 people down to 3, my thought was, what am I going to do next year? Like this doesn't seem very interesting to me. And then they were like, well, we're going to lay you off because we want to do some cost cutting. And I was like, well, it's kind of good because I didn't know that I really wanted to be
Right,
there and just manage this very small group. And it wasn't that, oh, I need to have a big group. It was just the majority of the problem had been solved. And so for me,
right.
and there's actually a book by, I don't remember her name, but it's called Impact Players, but it describes me perfectly. I want to go solve problems. And if the problem goes away, I'm happy going away. Right. But I don't want to, or if I
Yeah.
can't solve the problem, then I'm happy to go away too. It's kind of like, we go back to the sports analogy. I stepped back from my football team because I realized there's better players and that I'm not bringing
Mm,
what these other people can bring. So it's all for me about, I'm more concerned with the group win, with the company win. And if I'm adding value, great. And then that's one of my values personally. I would rather have, I would rather owe someone something than have them owe me something, because that means they contributed to me and I didn't give back. So I would rather make sure that
mm.
I over contributed. I mean, there's one guy who he owes me 30 grand and I'll never get it back. And I don't care because it matches my values of I'd rather contribute and be taken advantage of than take advantage of anyone else. Does that make sense?
Mm, wow, that was so good. Because I think in the culture, the society that we live in, that's kind of me, take, take, take. At least, of course, not everybody is like that. I'm generalizing, right? But a lot of what we see is just about is focused inward instead of outward and making that impact and making sure that everybody eats, right? Well, a lot of people will use that term. Um,
Uh huh.
I want to go back to your wife starting the studio, right? So I'm going through your little LinkedIn profile and I see this Irish dance school. So I actually, that is our next number, 200 plus dancers because you have the Shelley School of Irish Dance. And you
Hmm.
already kind of talked about how that was born, from your wife, Tina. Shout out to the wives. They get much love on this podcast. Uh, Teaching. And so, how did you guys meet and then decide, like, okay, like, let's do this. Like, let's go all the way in because I know you found a home. And so, how did those conversations happen? Because as a married man myself, I know like there's always constant dialogue about what's next, what do we do, what do we not do. So, what were those conversations like?
Yeah. Well, my wife was actually recruited to BYU as a to teach Irish dance. So she actually
Okay, hold on, time
taught
out.
Irish.
Who's the better athlete, you or your wife?
Uh, if it, I'm a better athlete, she's a better dancer. She did music, dance, theater, so she can sing, she can dance, she can do theater, she can do shows, presentations. She is phenomenal there. And for me, it was
Shout
more
out. Okay,
about
keep going.
I'm athletics and stuff. But yeah, so when we met, we actually met when we were learning Russian, going on we went on religious mission. I went to northern Russia, St. Petersburg area. She went down to Volgograd, a couple thousand miles away. But she was super driven and I was super driven to learn the language. So that's kind of one of the things that brought us together was really that culture of we're going to drive ourselves. Now we did it very differently because she had these music, dance, theater skills so she could memorize anything in any accent. And I was just the mechanical engineer, like, here's the ways and strategies to learn it. So we did those things. But then fast forward a couple years, we got married and my wife was teaching Irish dance at the university and had a couple classes that she was just teaching on the side. And so we had that. So then, like you say, I fast forward to I finished my MBA, and she had about, I don't know, somewhere 35 to 50 dancers that she was teaching.
Oh
And we were
wow.
like, well, what do we do? You know, she was the only certified teacher in Utah at the time for Irish dance. And so it was, well, we have this asset. We could continue to build on it, or we could go the normal route, go to follow a job. And it was really, for me, I thought it's good for my wife to have this thing to do. It's contributing to society and it's an asset for our family. And so that was really the discussion. And I've talked to my wife even recently. I'm like, what if I wanted to go do the other thing? She's like, then we would have done it. Like the only reason we did this was not because my wife was like, I want to be a boss, babe. That's my goal. I want to make money. She's like, my priority was the family and learning and teaching the kids and having time to spend with the kids. And so it was much more like, how do we do it together as a family? And we had very
Mm,
complementary skills in terms of she had all the teaching and all those skills, and I had all the technology, the website, all those type of things. So it works out really well. But I think some people have been like, "Oh, Tina was a boss babe. She really wanted this." No, it's not the case at all. It was, does this fit with our family? Does this fit with our life goals? Yes, it does. Great, we're going to do it. And it's been great. My kids all dance. I still don't dance because that's not my part of the business, but all my kids have danced. They've got trained. So that's the type of stuff. That's kind of how we made that decision. It was together. It wasn't me telling her what I had to have or her telling me. It was pros and cons of this.
man, I'm so glad you pointed it out because I think that is just I think that boils it down to something that anybody. Okay, I'm having a hard time to find these words because I know like when you're trying to do things the right way, it's not just, oh, I want to do this, so this is what's going to happen. I think when you have something that a marriage that is successful where everybody is happy, it's a partnership. And
Mhm.
stepping away and her going after that thing gung ho and figuring it out, and y'all figuring it out together and doing it for the family. That's the part where I'm like, yes, yes. It's not about this ego trip, about who's the boss, and that's so annoying to me because it's not real. It's not real. At least it shouldn't be. At least I haven't seen it in the successful marriages that I have witnessed in front of my eyes. Okay, I'll just speak from my own experience. That has not been the case. There's always this partnership and this give and take, and so where you went that way and like ours was us like going to China kind of on a whim, and she just trusted me to figure it out. And I couldn't have done it without her. And then when I get back, it's like I'm teaching. And then the kids. So you have 4 kids now, right? And you
Yep,
say
I have
you have
4 kids.
2 older teen. Yeah. So like and when women start to have kids, they're like, okay, well, what about my career? I'm gonna be on hold now for the next 10 years or what? So that was a real battle for my wife because she is a go-getter, much like yours. And she's like, man, like, am I gonna have to step away? Like, do you expect me to be a house mom? Like, what is this gonna look like? So it's great to hear that story and how it worked. And another short story of mine, real quick, my dad wanted to he started a safety company. And he worked in construction safety for years and years and years. And then he just finally went like, I can do this. Like, I know how to do it. I know the ins and outs. I could teach other people. And so when him and my stepmom, they just butted heads so much about it. Both of them were in the industry. So they could have that was like if you were a dancer as well and you taught, but you were too afraid to start the company, you rather just work for somebody else. And the other person
Mhm.
wanted to start the company. And I just saw how it really spiraled everything down. That was part of it. So just to kind of see how y'all came together and figured it out, that it warms my heart. So um I also had this question like, how'd you find your role in the company? Like, you talked about all of the technical stuff. Did your leadership kind of skills ever come into play? I liken it to like front of the house, back of the house, right? You were kind of back of the house in the restaurant. You were making the meals, making sure everything kept going. She was front of the house, managing the staff, teaching people stuff, got the food
Mhm.
going out, everybody's happy. So did you ever have to like come to the front of the house and like maybe use some of your management or experience there?
In the Irish dance, I don't think it's not my place in terms of my wife is the
Mm,
face, and I'm happy with that. It's not something that I need or want. She'll talk
mm,
about it, and sometimes she'll say, "Hey, no, thanks, my husband," and that's pretty much all I need. That's all the business needs. They don't need me.
right.
I mean, 90%, 95% of the kids are dancing girls. They're these little girls. Their moms. They don't. They don't need me. I'm just there to support my wife in that sense. But I would say, and I generally, I mean, my engineering side is really, and frankly, the athletic side too. It's just like, let me show you what I can do, and then you'll see
Mm,
how good I am. And I kind of had
right.
that feel when I got a job when I was 18 washing dishes and cleaning toilets and stuff at this family camp. But I had this drive where I'm like, I want to make stuff better. So I'd be like, how can I do the dishes faster? How can I do these things faster? How could I? And then we would, after the meals, we would be like, how do we reset the whole place faster and better? And it
Mm,
was weird because I ended up I still was 18. The next year, though, they called me when I came back. They're like, hey, do you want to be the leader? And I was like, because the other guy had weirdly retired. And I'm like, well, I'm 18 and some of the people here are 24, but why are you
yeah.
giving it to me? And they're just like, well, you're the one who's engaged. Right. And I wasn't that I wanted to be the leader. It just happened because of the effort I was putting in. And I've actually seen this in a
Yep.
number of places. A lot of people are like, I want to be the leader. Like, put me up in front of the leader. No, you got to earn being the leader. Patrick Mahomes is not the
Mm,
leader because everyone's like, well, we're going to let him. He's the leader because he leads and because he puts in the effort. And so that's the kind of places I've been in. And I found myself in an awkward situation at one point when it was my birthday and they were trying to the group I was managing was trying to celebrate me, and I wasn't really helping them support. And I just ended up weirdly, they were trying to lift me up on their shoulders, and I was like, "What's going on? I don't need this." And it ended up being held upside down with my butt to everyone by these two guys. And I was like, "Okay, there's times when people want to honor you for your effort, and I need to facilitate that." So it was a weird experience, but that's kind of where I really am looking at my contribution. And there's points in this last company. I mean, I started as a development manager. I was running the development
Mhm,
team over our software. And then there was an opportunity, and I said, "Hey, I think we could, if I did marketing, I could do a much better job than what's going on." So they're like, "Okay, now you're the VP of marketing." I went and did an impact there. They're like, "Man, you made a big impact there. You want to be the COO?" Okay. And then I was the COO. We grew that
sure.
team over 3 years from 20 people to 180. Right. So it was this big
Wow.
team. And it was like, how do you make an impact? And if I focus on that, if you're the leader in terms of effort, you will become the leader for most people. Because to your point, there's a lot of people who are in the business world like, well, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to do a little bit of, I'm going to do my own thing, watch YouTube while I do it, whatever the minimum effort I can put in. And if my experience,
Mm,
if you just engage, you will have people asking you and wanting to give you more and more responsibility, give you more money. I got multiple pay raises without asking for them because they're like, well, you should be making this
mm,
now. Well, now we want to give you this because they realized I was having an impact. So instead of sitting there and begging for pay raises, they were giving them to me. And so that's the place where I like to be like, I contributed. It was clear I contributed. And now they were going to honor that. Right. So that's where I say, like, lead with effort. Don't sit and don't wait until someone gives
mm.
you a leadership role.
Yeah. Uh, somebody that I know, they like to say we're all leaders, right? Because we all have a hand in what we do. I'm just like, no, I don't I don't agree with that. But but I would say that there has to be somebody, leading the way, writing the vision, so on and so forth. What part of like the BYU experience? Because I know it's different than other places. So how did that prepare you like to go into this world? And what are some like memorable times that you had there? I know you talked about Russia. I mean, we could both talk about living overseas too.
Yeah. If you look at BYU, one of the big things about BYU that's interesting is the number of people who have served missions in other countries. I mean, I have friends who speak Chinese, Japanese, English. Some served my son right now is actually on a mission in Zimbabwe, right? So you have all these
Mm,
people all over where you're coming together from you've seen the difference of what a culture is in different countries. I'm sure you experienced that in China, right? The Chinese culture
oh
versus the
yeah.
American culture. And that is super informative in how you choose to put your own life together and what your values are. So with BYU, I mean, let's be honest, their football team, it's great for us, but it's not an SEC team. We're never going to be. I mean, it's there's an honor code. There's things where they say you need to follow, have honor in terms of they're not having premarital sex. There's not no, you have a grooming standard. There's a lot of things like that. But I think a lot of those are just trying to help you avoid mistakes that can hurt you further down the road.
Mm,
So that was great.
mhm.
And then it was actually interesting because a lot of people at BYU are they're very driven, especially the teachers. I would have teachers who had taught at Harvard and they were very goal driven. They were like, I could have taught at Harvard. Now I'm here because I believe in the mission of what we're doing. And that's where I think you end
Mm,
up with a lot of great people who believe in the mission or goal. And I think in companies, it's the same thing. In your family, it's the same thing. Like if you have a compelling mission and purpose, people will be drawn to you, right?
right.
People want meaning in their lives. So that's where I think there's a big piece with BYU is you have a lot of people there who had exceptional backgrounds, did exceptional things, and then they were like, but I want to give back and I want to push these people with similar values. So that's where I'd say the big
Mm,
difference was. I mean, it's also a religious school, so you're bringing in God, church, those type of things, which has some of the culture of faith. Like you got to like faith without works is dead. Just the same in business. Oh, I believe I can build a business. Cool. You got to go freaking do the hard work though.
Yep.
So there's a lot of
Yes, sir.
principles,
Yes.
there's a lot of principles in religion that are very useful to help you move forward in life. So that's where I'd say it's a little different. It wasn't so much this, hey, let's go on everything and let's worry about all these issues. It was more, how do we get you educated? How do you contribute to society at large? I mean, after living in
Mm,
Russia, there was a lot of poverty, and I'm like, how do I help with this? And some of it, I'm like,
right.
well, I saw some people who were literally drunk at 9 a.m. I'm like, it's the
Wow.
you've been drunk, you're drunk the whole day, your health is destroyed. So it's like people need to learn how to make better choices. And that's kind of what I put that in the book a little bit. Like, I'm not saying there's any right choices. Like, I don't want to say, oh, you got to do
Mm,
this in your life or you have to do this. Just like in a business, you don't tell Google and Walmart they have to do the same strategy, same culture. It doesn't work like that.
right.
Right. But in a family, you got to say, how are you making it work? Right. Like, I've done the dishes,
Right.
I've changed the diapers, I've made the meals, whatever we needed to do in the family. That's how I roll. It's like, I'm in this together. There's no roles. It's like, what is the role that we need right now for me to do? And the same with my
Ah,
wife. So it's
yes. Yes.
so
Yes.
so that's
Yes.
the tough.
Okay. Okay. Keep going. Keep going, Aaron. I'm sorry. I'm agreeing.
Well, so this is where, in my whole book is about using the business lens to look at family. Because if you look at a family, you go, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to survive and just, I'm getting going into this marriage and I'm going to get mine? Well, that's gonna just imagine if you went to a company and you're like, I'm only here working because I want mine. Well, you're selfish and people aren't gonna want to
See ya.
collaborate. Yeah, or if you went into an interview and you said, I'll give 50%, they'd be like, what the F are you talking about? We're not hiring you. Right. But people go into marriage and they're like, I'm giving 50%. You need to do 50% of the dishes and you need to do 50% of the money and blah, blah, blah. Businesses don't run like that. You go, hey, I'm a
Mm-mm.
sales guy and you're a developer. We're going to get together and we're going to work and we're going to be better together. We're going to have a synergy. And it seems like so many people don't understand that fundamental concept of, I don't want to marry someone like me. I want to marry someone who's complementary to me. Right. And that's where, if you get
Yes.
this complementary stuff, man, you're getting, this 1 + 1 = 5 instead of just 1 + 1 = 2. Or in some marriages, it seems like 1 + 1 = 0. It's,
Negative two.
and that's where, yeah, negative. And that's where you look at, like, if you did a startup company, you're not sitting there like, well, I'm only going to do my part of the work. It's like, whatever the crap needs to get done, you do it. You don't sit there and
Mm,
wait and say, like, well, that's your job. If the guy's overwhelmed in his job, you go and say, hey, how can I help you? Right. And that to me is, you pointed out, you had a young baby. Man, when you have a baby, you're my wife literally grew the baby. That's a lot of energy. Right. Then she has the baby. That is not an easy experience physically. Then the baby's waking up and she's feeding the baby. It's like, holy cow, my partner is stressed. I need to step up and help out as much as I can. Research, how can we
yes.
do it better? Do those type of things. But if you sit there like, sorry, this is your job. A, even if it's
Oh,
true, you're just an
you're
a-hole,
toast.
right? So you can,
You're
and
done.
that's the other thing. If you look at it and say, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing for the baby and for our family, then she'll be like, thank you so much. I feel fulfilled and I feel appreciated. But if I'm like, well, what did
Mm,
you do today?
mm.
You just been sleeping the whole day? She's going to be like, dude,
Ex-
screw
Excuse
you.
me?
I'm out. So,
Okay.
so,
Wow.
so that's why I love the business lens, is because you look at it and you say, we're trying to contribute. If someone gets overwhelmed, we go help them, right? It's the sports metaphor. Like, if someone gets hurt, you're going in for them. If someone's having trouble blocking, maybe you jump in and support them. Like, there's so many good ways
Mm.
to look at this family and be like, we're both in it to win it, and we both are making the money. And with our legal system, it's 50-50 anyway, right? So we're in
Oh
this.
yeah.
It's a partnership. Let's make it awesome so we're both super wealthy in multiple ways versus just, I got to get mine. You're not doing enough. I mean, those discussions can happen when people feel like they're slacking, but they shouldn't be this
Right.
constant feeling of, I'm putting in my all and you're being a slacker.
Okay, so you've referenced the book many, many times, and you're like kind of jumping in and out. So I think it is time. Okay, we come up with our number here. It is three elements. Okay, because your three elements that you kind of structure this thing around is strategy, structure, and culture. And it's called the Family Flywheel book. So I'm not even going to ask a question here. I am just going to let you simply take it away. How to start, wherever you want to start there, just book, book, book. Here we go.
All right. So yeah, if you my main concept is every business has a business model, right?
Mm,
Meaning Walmart they have a specific strategy they're trying to play. They have a specific structure, that they're working, and they have a specific culture. Google has this different strategy, a different structure, and a different culture. Google's culture is going to be freedom and responsibility. If you don't want to wake up at 4 a.m., great, you do that. That's our culture. And we don't have a lot of people breathing down your neck because you don't have a lot of management. And our goal is to organize the world's data. And if you look at Walmart, Walmart's goal is to provide low quality things for families so we can live better. But their structure is much more top down leadership because a lot of people they hire don't have a lot of experience and they need people to come in and show up on time so we can have stuff on the shelves and pick it up. So their culture is much more
mhm,
around, you know, following the rules, being a customer focused, being around people, those type of things. Now, both of those cultures work, culture strategies and structures, they work well, that business model for each company. But if you took Google's culture and put it in Walmart, it breaks, right? If you take Walmart's company,
mm,
move it over to, the structure, all those things have to be aligned. And then if you look at the family, it's the same thing. Like, okay, I want to be a doctor, but I want to get married when I'm 18 and I want to have lots of kids early. Okay.
good
And then
luck.
it's like, good luck. Those things are out of alignment. Unless your parents are, multimillionaires or billionaires and they can fund it all, right? So there could be a way, oh, my dad's a billionaire and my wife and I are going to live with them, and so we have the house and they'll have all the support. Maybe it works, but it probably won't. And then if you're like, but my culture, I want instant gratification. I don't want to have to wait for things. Well, freak, being a doctor is 10 years of investing, right?
Mm,
So that's where you look at the strategy, structure, and culture of each family, and that's of an individual. But if you take now the wife, well, the wife's like, well, I want to have lots of kids early, and you're like, but I'm going to be a doctor. Again, you can have friction in your own business model, or you can have
mm.
friction between you and your wife's business model. I'm sure you've experienced a little bit of that. I mean, I've definitely had a lot of um, discussions and kind of conflicts with my wife about how we want to run our lives and what decisions. But that's really the business model portion because that business model determines, what do you do with your money? What do you do with your time? What do you do with your relationships? Right? So are you investing, like a lot of times the men will invest their time and energy for money. I'm going to go work a sales job. I'm going to make six figures. That's great. What's your wife going to do? Well, if she goes and works too, that's great, but then you've neglected all your social relationships. Like who's
Mm,
building your connections in the community, who's building society, like that type of stuff, your brand. Also, who's investing in the family if you have children, and in your relationship. So there's those social connections, social relationships. In the business world, we'd call that your brand, your marketing, right? Those relationships are there in the business, but a lot of times we ignore them in the family, and we say, hey, I'm going to work and
yeah.
she's going to work. Okay, well, who's investing in the relationships in the community? And then the final one is really your health and your mental health, physical health, your time,
Mm,
and then your abilities, right? You go to college, you don't go to college because you want to make more money now. You go to college because you want to learn. Now you have a degree. Now you can take that degree and those abilities and your time and make more money than you would have. Now you have that money. Now you might want to
mhm,
invest in real estate. Now you might want to go get more education. You might want to go, invest in your relationships with your extended family or your friends. So that's where you get into, that's why I call it the flywheel. It's this circular, if you invest in good relationships, you're going to have good friends. And then those good friends are going to introduce you to more good friends. And then you're going to have more good
Mm,
friends that are introducing you to more good friends. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have this massive network of people who are like, will help you do whatever you want to do. Right. So that's what I
right,
call the
right.
family. The business model is really the engine that creates all the resources. That's the engine that's creating the money. That's the engine that's creating the ability and the health of the family. It's the engine that's creating those great relationships. But if you look at it and just say, "Well, I want to be rich," well, what does that have to do with anything? What's your engine look like? You know what I mean? It's like saying, "I want a car that goes fast." Well, what? Well, where's the engine of your car?
Gotta
That
build it.
determines if you go fast, not just the fact that you want a fast car. So, does that make
So
sense?
which element? Yeah, absolutely. 100%. You're talking about the processes in place to get the results and how to build those within the family and not just as a business. So, where did this idea come from? Because, like, thinking of family as a business is a very different way of thinking of it, especially in the American culture. I feel like it's definitely not done that way. So, where did the idea come from? How did this originate, and how did your flywheel get going?
How'd the brain start running? Yes. Well, that's partially I'm a little obsessive, but so I did this research on this guy's other book, and then I was also doing consulting. I was managing this whole other company, and then at the same time, I had my mom had sent me an article about a friend of mine from high school I hadn't seen in 15, 20 years, and he was being sentenced to prison for rape and attempted
Mm,
murder. And I was
right?
like, wait a minute, same school, same amount of money, same war, same church,
Yeah.
same area. Like there was
Time
we
out.
like what the freak just happened? This was a guy I knew. Where did we go off? So that's really what got me churning on the importance because I'm a dad and I don't know, I like to protect my family, probably like you. And I'm like, how can I protect myself from something I don't understand? So that's really what got the flywheel
Mm.
going in my brain.
So, what for the background? Tell people like what your family life was like, and I would like to know how did it differ? Like, what were some things that you did growing up, or that your mom and dad or whoever introduced to you? When you get older, you go, either this was totally wrong, or this was great, or this maybe need to be tweaked a little bit, but maybe we're on the right path. What are some differences and some similarities?
Well, so when I grew up. So my dad has his. He worked as a coder, also as a professor at university. He had a PhD, and my mom was a teacher before she started to have children. So she went through high
Mm,
college as well. But when I was young, I think my dad he was around a lot, but he was working a lot. I mean, he actually was building a business, doing some really cool things with code. And my mom was around. Wasn't working, so when I came home from school, she'd be there. I'd go shopping with her, cook with her, can peaches and pears with her, that type of stuff. As well as she taught me how to clean, which was probably why it was good with that job. My mom was like, "You do it right, or you keep doing it." So there was a lot of that. I mean, she was a potato farmer slash sheep farmer from Idaho. So yeah,
oh
that's
wow.
you do it right, or you don't do it, or you keep doing it. So there was kind of that culture involved. Um, I would say one of the things that I've done differently than my parents, my family was very supportive in a lot of different endeavors. Like
Mm,
I threw javelin. My brother did some basketball. My other brother swam. We had kind of the kids go in a lot of different directions. I looked at that with my family, and because my wife and I had chose for her to have this Irish dance business, we didn't have as much time for her or for the family. So I said, no, all of our kids are going to Irish dance. They can play some recreational soccer, some of these things. And I actually pulled them into volleyball as well. But we're not going to do hey, we're going to go in 1,000 different directions and just accept
mm,
that because we didn't have enough time to have or we wouldn't have had family time. So that was one of the changes that I made was we're not going to do everything because of the nature of our family. We're going to focus in on one thing, Irish dance. They all got to the top level of that. They all played sports in other ways, but we just didn't let them go in all the different directions that a lot of parents did and my parents did. And I would say
mm,
another area of my family that I've not replicated as much. My dad was very much like an intellectual. He loves to learn. He just does not love to interact with people very much. Right? Like if he's talking about a problem, he loves it. If he's not, he may
Mm,
be somewhere else. So I've tried to be much more um, engaged with my kids, teach them a little more
mm,
aggressively than he did, spend time with them. I homeschooled with my wife for a year for our kids. There was a point when I spent 2 months with my son when he was in ninth grade, getting him through a college calculus class because of some weird things that were happening at school. So I think I've invested a
right,
lot heavier there, and I've also done more travel with my children because I want them to understand other cultures. Right? That's very important to me, is to see the difference of, well, there's other ways people live. They're not wrong. They're not right. They're functional there too. So I'd say those are the big things
right.
that I've done differently than my family.
That's funny. Of course, everything brings a story to mind or recent conversation. I was talking to my brother, and I think D'Lo is like 26 or 27. When you have so many brothers and sisters, it's really hard to keep track of ages. So I think D'Lo is 6 years younger than me. That would make him 27. And we were talking maybe 2 days ago, and he was like, "Man, I remember in our family, we would say that a lot of stuff was stupid or dumb. We would use," he said, "those are the words." He was like, "That's stupid." We would say that all the time to stuff. And just thinking back, I'm like, oh man, that is so ignorant. I think of us. Immature as another word that comes to mind, because now I'm more of a, okay, you may say something that is off the beaten path. We'll use that term. But now my mind is asking why. Why does that person think that way? Or what was the experience, right? I guess that's why I'm a podcast host these days, because I like to ask the question why, because I want to see, how did you come to that conclusion? It may sound a little bit different than we're used to, okay? But how did we get there? Because there's always something that brings us to the places where we are, whatever that may look like. As um, weird is another word people use that I honestly don't like, because what's weird? Who determines weird? I think everybody likes what they like. I heard you throw javelin. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. That's more the word that I think of now, because so you went to Russia, you have this whole BYU college experience, then you have a wife. She has an Irish dance studio. I'm like, this dude and his life is just off the charts. So I guess that brings us here to what we're doing now. So I think that is going to bring us to like our last piece that I do with every person that I talk with, and it's called our three whats. You can go however long or short you want with these, and we're going to jump into the first one. What's an opinion that you have that would be considered unpopular?
Hmm.
I think you just said one.
Um.
A lot of people
I
moving their kids around with all these different activities.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely a place. My opinion would be, I think that too many people are are focused on financial resources as the
Mm,
main
mm,
judge for how they look at their life. And I think if you look at most people who have acquired those financial resources, they look at it and say, if I'm rich, but I've lost my wife and kids, my wife hates me, my kids hate me, what a waste. Or if I
mm,
compromise my health, right? Oh, I'm going to give up my health. I'm just going to work 90-hour weeks, 100-hour weeks. I'm just going to go there. And now I'm rich and I'm sick. And you look at this and say,
mm,
you're focused too much on the finances, especially I think with a lot of women, they get pushed into these careers and they look at it and they're like, I don't even like this. I don't like being a lawyer. This sucks. I have to be up. I don't like being this. I'm good at it. It's not from a lack of good. It's just, but I don't, this isn't what I wanted to do with my life. So I think overly focused on the money
right,
in the bank, because what can you do? I can go travel. Oh, I can go fly differently. Is that meaningful in some way? Like, how is that matching up with
right,
your life? So I think a lack of those social connections and the lack of, and focusing and investing in there, as well as your health, those two things seem to be on the back burner in society. And that's where I think you're ending up with. well, our divorce rate's crazy and we're having all these problems. Well, duh. It's because you don't value the relationship. You only value your money. Of course, like
Mm,
I, the number of divorces that I've seen where people are, I had a woman and she said, yeah, I'd rather have money than have my husband home. And it's like, well, now you got neither, right?
exactly.
So, so
Wow.
that's, I think, an unpopular opinion, but the evidence seems to show that it's much better if you invest holistically in both social and financial resources.
Okay. Great answer. Next, what? If you weren't, I mean, where do I even start with this question? Okay. If you weren't doing the book, The Family Flywheel, okay, what would you be doing?
Well, I go back to my mode is I want to have an impact and I want to contribute. And so if I'm not doing the family flywheel, and at this point in my life, I have the option to do kind of whatever I want, I would probably be in some technical place trying to help people out, build up another
Mm,
company that I thought was adding value to society. So I don't think it's really where can I have the biggest impact? And right now, if I wasn't doing the book, I'd probably be building an app based around the book to help people, help families because I mean I saw
yeah.
a YouTube video of this guy in LA dealing with this homeless crisis we're having. And he says, yeah, they all have, these guys are homeless. Now you give them a home, but they still have mental health problems or they're still on drugs. Okay, you deal with the drug problem, but they still have mental health problems. Okay, why do they have mental health problems? It's because of their family. And I'm like,
Mm,
oh crap, like this is the root problem. Bad families, bad connections, bad business models. That is the core of so many of the societal issues. So if we don't solve those,
yep.
okay, well, now we give people homes, but they're still on drugs. Is that a fulfilling life? And our society still has to pay for this? That doesn't work. So I'm trying to solve what I consider the root problem and helping people make better decisions. Like I said, I'm not trying to tell you how to live. I'm not trying to tell you the values. I'm just trying to help people. I believe that everyone is making the best decision that they are aware they can make. And I'm just trying to
Mm.
expand the lens of where they could look into the resources they could look and how they could think of things differently so they can make better choices. So that's probably what I'd be doing.
Woo, that is so good. You said, I think that people are making the best decisions basically that they know that they have available to them, something like that.
Hmm.
So good.
Exactly.
That's clip worthy right there. Okay. Last what? And you could speak directly to this one. What advice would you give to someone who is in high school?
High school. Oh,
The eye
that's
roll is
been a
crazy. I
while.
love it.
I'm just trying to think. There's so many places of how would I look? I would say one, be really careful about the decisions you're making in that
Mm,
short period of time. You think that it's all important about who you're friends with, what you're doing, what groups you're in, who you're partnered up with. If you do that wrong at that point or make decisions, that can actually reduce the number of decisions you can make in the future, right?
mm.
If you get a girl pregnant, man, all of a sudden you got all
Woo.
sorts of obligations that other things aren't. You're essentially removing options of your life because of the decisions you're making. So I like to have as many options as possible. So I'd say, a look through a lot of be careful about making some of those mistakes that can hurt you. But then the other thing is look around at the people you want to emulate. Find people,
Mm,
whether it's on YouTube, whether it's teachers, that are good examples of where you want to be. I think a lot of kids don't actually look outside of they're like, I want to be a teacher. I don't know what else to do in society because I don't see a lot of examples or sports. I want to be in the NFL. Look outside. There's
yeah.
so many jobs that are available for people to do. So look at them, talk to people who you are good. I mean, Tony, you seem like you're an awesome teacher. I'm sure people love it because those type of people, if you start asking them, hey, here's my goals, how do I get there, or what would you advise, all of a sudden they will open up to you and they will help you because all of the successful people that I've
Yes.
ever met are so willing to help people who are driven and motivated to go somewhere. the most frustrating thing for me, and I'm thinking for you as well as a teacher, is to watch people squander their abilities, their talents, their time,
Ugh,
because you're like, man, it's so sad. If you had just spent your time slightly differently, you could be on this track, right? And that's where I feel like the
mm,
guy who ended up in my life, who is now in prison for life, what a tragedy. It was just a few decisions, and then I think it was just the cascading nature of those decisions. And he couldn't get out of, there's a flywheel, which is positive. In the business world, there's
yep.
also a thing called a death spiral, where you make bad decisions, which then leads to more bad decisions. You get involved with the wrong people. And I mean, it's, it's sad. I mean, if I think it's Aaron Hernandez who was playing for the Patriots, right? He had like a $40
Right.
million contract, and then he went to jail for murder. It's like,
Yeah.
what
And
did you do? What a tragedy.
squandered it
So
all.
I, so that's the type of stuff where I look at, like, don't be very careful about the decisions you're making, and try to
Mm,
get more options and talk to successful people, and those people will help guide you. Be careful, you don't want to take, financial advice from a homeless dude. It's the same thing. Don't be taking advice from people who don't know what they're talking about, in your life. And so that's really where I'd say. And then I'd say the last thing would be, dude, read good books. Read a lot of good books.
mm,
There's so many smart people who have written in their books, here's how I did it. Please take my advice. Please become better than me. I mean, that's my purpose in writing the book. I wish I had had this when I was
mm.
young. So the people on YouTube, the people who are making podcasts like yourself, Tony, they're trying to help you, right? All these people are trying to help the next generation do better. Please take advantage of it.
Mm.
We kind of beg you, please.
Yes. Literally, I'm in class every day. Like, please, y'all. Like, I'm handing it to you. And so I won't go on a whole teacher rant. There's plenty of those on TikTok that people can look at. So, Aaron, please tell people, where can they find the book? Where can they find what you're doing? Plug it all here.
All right. So yeah, the book, I show that here. It's kind of got the family flywheel. It's
Yeah.
got the circular nature. You can find that on Amazon. I have a book. I have a website called thefamilyflywheel.com. I've got a blog there. I've got some forms you can fill out. I want to help you in any way possible. My email is aaron@thefamilyflywheel.com. So if you have any questions, you want me to help you out, anything like that, let me know. I'm doing this mainly because I want to help people. Right? It's not really for myself. It's how do I help the next generation? My view
Right.
is that families are the pillars of our society, and our society is like the Colosseum. We can take a few of those pillars, can get knocked out, and it's going to stay up. But I think we're getting to a point where we're getting so many knocked out. Our society's teetering.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to hold the families together, rebuild some of those pillars, and together we'll all create this phenomenal society together.
I think that's a great place to end it. Thank you, Aaron, for coming on. Mr. Shelley, I mean, we literally could have talked for like 3 hours. I mean, there were so many different things in there. We could have just went off the rails, but you know what? We had a plan. We made our plan. And this is definitely an inside joke at this point. And we stuck to the list. So thank you for coming on. Make sure you all like, rate, review 5 stars. Hey, share this. Go and buy the book Family Flywheel by Aaron Shelley. He's really just trying to help you get better, you and your family. Okay. Make sure you guys follow me on IG and TikTok at the Living Numbers Podcast. Merch link in the description. And I think that's it. So I will see you all in the next round. Voila.